What is up, YouTubeverse? Let's get some stuff squared away here. Share the link out. Coding a grade book. Oh, you know what? Let's put it on as a sub of that. Make sure I throw this in general. Alrighty. I think we're good to go now. So, what we've got going on, if you've been stalking me on the Twitter webs, as I know none of you are, but you know, like one person maybe, is this. So, I'm working on a grade book. That's a dirty word. You can't say that you're building a grade book, Brian. Okay, I'm working on a weird, quirky project that visualizes tag-based information. So it's called a gradebook. So what the gradebook looks like, let me fire up a demo here, move this tab over, is this right now. So the gradebook launches, it's got these little progress indicators that are loading. There we go. All right. Then when it's done loading all of its backend data, we can start to play with it and see that we've got this rubric here. It's still certainly a work in progress. As I tick these values up, it's taking them into account and duplicating them right there. Right? I can click and I'm at a maximum. I've got these fields. So this is in EdTech land, this is a qualitative rubric. And a qualitative rubric is that we're giving qualitative types of feedback. So I'd say, you know, exercise rubric, okay, I'm looking at your assignment, right? So if you're not familiar with our space, then I'm saying you did a great job on line quality, spacing, character development, you know, stuff like that, right? Things that quantify things that are qualitatively applying useful feedback to what you did on your work, right? So that you can hopefully improve at what you're doing. So a lot of this is based on a lot of mock-ups and things from Michael Collins, faculty member we work with quite a bit at Penn State. But he's got these this taxonomy of these different ways we can apply qualitative feedback. So I could take like use of white space, characters, critical path, and I can just start dragging these into their associated area in the rubric. And then obviously there's going to be some score involved, right? But the score is very subjective. It's not like, oh, you just check the boxes here. That's a different type of rubric. What we're trying to do is just make it so that you can give the student feedback rapidly, so that we can scale up what an instructor is doing as far as how many people they're evaluating, giving meaningful feedback to. So as that's being informed, I might still go like, hey, really use the white space better on the page because of layout, something like this, right? There might still be feedback I have to give that's in written form. More here, and then overall, loved your project. Keep going and working hard on the next iteration, something like that, okay? Right, so I give this person, we'll say an 18, 16. So then this is my evaluation view, the assessment view here. I'm going through and building out, right? And I say, hey, you did a great job with moral centrism, or in writing, your writing style was fantastic. There's no economic plan involved. Now, you didn't like mess that up, but I have literally no context as to what you're talking about, right? So stuff like that is the way that you'd kind of perceive using this. As that builds out, I'm building a student report. So this is the view that the learner would see in this case. I should add typography as well, just so we see what that does. But you can see it's consolidating that info and saying, hey, the first category was called attention to detail. Here's what that is in case you forgot. Here's the things you did great. Here's the things you could work on. Here's some written additional feedback. There's your score, right? So we do this for all 3 of these, well, 2 of them, and then at the bottom, here's the overall feedback. You got a 16 out of 20. Sweet. Okay. This also has support for corrective or feedback. So if I do stuff for improvement, hey, kerning, your kerning was terrible, which is like spacing between letters. Say it's a graphical mock-up or something. That kerning has some additional details underneath it. It has a full written description of what kerning is, in case maybe you're just learning what kerning is. And then it has links to where you can learn more about kerning. That is metadata that's kind of hidden away in these tags, just trying to establish context if you're just joining in now. So then on the board, I can skip around to other students, which is loading these fake students up here. And then I can skip around different assignments, and we're not locked to points. We could also have percentage-based rubrics. So there's a lot going on here as far as what a rubric is contextually. It's why they are so difficult to build, at least to make people happy. So what's powering this, though, I think is what's most interesting here. So I'm going to refresh the page. Let's watch a network request on XHR. This data and the portions of the data are loading, you know, as they come in, right? This is loaded. There we go. It's like a progressive loaded, load. This stuff is coming from, we can see an endpoint there. So we've got Google Docs is powering this. So this data is being pulled in from this Google Docs sheet that has all the different little like database-y sorts of things involved in it. So you can see for tags, those tags are coming in. That kerning with the additional descriptive information and associated materials is all managed through this one Google Doc. And then we've got rubric. So the rubrics are setting themselves up based on, right, there's the qualitative, the fact that the percentage-based rubrics had 3 areas. And if I go down to points, let's go find that. There it is. 3 categories for this. 40, 40, 20, that's coming from this back end. And it only has good and needs work, right? So it only has 2 of these areas, right? You either are killing it on something or you really need to work on it, okay? So simplified rubric there, powered from this sheet. Assignments that's listing what all the assignments to go through, a fake roster, working on fake submissions thing. Grades, which there's no two-way street with this currently, it's just polling data. And then grading scales, what we wanted to get to right now. So I have an issue I just opened. I have a simple web component use case. It's a letter grade, right? So you're usually going to have like a, hey, you killed it, you got an A. It would be great to just have that occur. You shouldn't have to, I mean, it's an easy mathematical calculation. If I give someone in the grade book, you know, I give them a 15% on this because they're terrible, and a 40% of the grade on that, and 15%, I got to make that update. Then I would have 70, right? So 70%, I should be able to look at my grading scale, right, in here and see, oh, 70 is a C. Okay. So we're pulling these Google Sheets in, and now we can get into Codeland now that we've established context a bit. So this is what our gradebook web component looks like when you implement it. It's just pointing to the sheet address, which is pulled from here. So in Google Sheets, there's going to be this address that is made available when you go and you hit publish to web. Right? So there's that identifier, and you can see, you can say, hey, give me it as CSV. So it's really powerful. What the Google Docs just built-in like little API is here. It also has the core settings set correctly, so you can just pull directly from it. So let's see how I actually went about doing this. The reason that this would be sustainable, we finish the context part before we get in code deep dive here, is if you forked that exact sheet, all of the IDs after this remain static. Very critical, particularly for this little prototype making. So how the heck is this working? So there are these things called sheet GUIDs, or GIDs, global identifiers. You can see it up here in the address. Now the very first page you make in any Google Doc Sheets setup is going to be 0. Everything from there is some dynamically generated thing when you tap the button. However, if you make a copy of this entire document, wherever the heck that is, make a copy, every GUID will be the same. It's just this identifier that changes. So as a result of that, that gives us these semi-stable endpoints. So when we swap out the ID of which sheet to leech for data, it's going to then iterate through these and hit these specific GUIDs. So the way we're hitting the GUIDs here, you can see, and this is built in lit element. Everything we do is lit element. So in our updated lifecycle, so imagine the whole page is setting itself up. We have support for source, and source is being drawn from a sheet, and the sheet, right? So if we look at the way I implemented this, it's just sheet, right? So I point to an ID, and then we use that ID to form the path to obtain the source in CSV output. So this is just what Google's path is, so you can export a CSV document. Then that triggers this to run, and we go through and say, do some debouncing to make sure this doesn't fire like 100 times on startup, just the one. So, okay, we're loading currently, which then makes the loading indicator run. And then we await the loading of CSV data, passing in this case, the sheet address, and then GUID matching each of the sheet IDs. So it's going to iterate through each of those sheet IDs, right? Each of these. And so each of these will effectively give us a new CSV file. So if we look at what loading CSV data is, it's a basic fetch, and then we just wait for it. So we're going to fetch and wait for this. We're going to get it in text, and then we're going to handle that response. And again, it's asyncing so that this happens 1, 2, 3, 4. We can't just let it spin off and do all of them at once for purposes we'll see in a minute. So then I have this super wonderful function. I don't even remember where I found this. Oh, there it is. It's from a Stack Overflow. Or actually, it's a mix. Yeah, it's a mix of some solutions proposed there. But this is an interesting, way too difficult to understand in this mashed together form way of taking a CSV text string and converting it into an array. So it's going to leverage like end lines and return carriages and commas and quoted values, right? There's a comma. And it's going to formulate what an array should be of that CSV file. So imagine we hit that endpoint, it gives us CSV from Google, then we take that, we make a table, we shift the first heading off so we know what the headings are for all of these, and then we use that information to format the data into a new way. So let's look at what that data ends up looking like. If we go to, not grid plate, silly, all right. So if we store as a global value the gradebook, and I do a .database because that's what I call it to make this easier to understand. .database, here is the database, air quotes, backend, which is the Google Sheets driven thing. So then let's go to tags, right? So tags pulls the data from that sheet and groups it like this, so that then you get an associative array of objects. Each of those objects then has the information that was found in that other document. So here's kerning, which has associated material, which is an array of items, and some categories. Now most of them, tags does some additional special stuff. Most of them are like this. Like you go to grades, and then you could see, okay, there's Brian, and I have no grades entered for any of these values. And here's the next student and the next one. And then you have, not grading details, I'm looking for another simple one. Rubrics, there we go, rubric. And a rubric has these qualitative values, and it's got a, almost machine name of short name, things like that. So we parse all that data in. We also can run some special processing functions. For example, tags has to structure its data a little differently because it has categories that are groupings of tags, so we can visually put that in the page. And then we ultimately just start passing state around so that we end up with, like these values equate to this number, and then it's over on student report, right? Yeah, so 65, and I still got to get that 5 points thing updating from its original. So what I want to do is I want to make like a letter A, B, C, whatever that's on the student report. I also want the faculty, as they're using this, to just see it like, hey, I'm giving this student a, you know, a B plus or whatever. They probably already know that, but it doesn't hurt to, you know, inform them of, hey, this is a B plus. Then on the student report, I'm going to take that same value, print it right there, because to be perfectly honest, a lot of students are going to look at our feedback as faculty and just say, cool. So what did I get again? Right? That's like the very first question. I did really well on typeface. That's great. It was a B plus. Okay. All right. Now I'll read because I got to improve on some stuff. So how would we make a little letter grade? Well, in our little database of values, we see we have grade scale. Now, grade scale is one of the GUID values. And this is like the fun thing about using Google Docs or Sheets as a backend. I can structure this however I want. Grade scale, right? So letter, this could be like stuff or amazing, right? And we'll see how we go about handling that. Now, I probably, at high range gets a little tricky. As I've thought about this, I might just want to say like max or like anything, because I need some. I can't just say 100, because what if in the way we're doing grading, you actually end up with like 105, right? So maybe I'll leave it at like 100, and then we'll have to put some logic into our element to say like, look, if you get above the best score, then obviously that's the best. You know, you've still got that. So I've got a pretty easy to understand grade scale here from a database perspective, right? It's going to give me an object that's letter, high rating, low rating. So that's our range. And then there's going to be some value, right? A minus, etc. If you give out, you know, the other nice thing with this approach, you could change this entirely. Middle school education and elementary usually does like, it's like E, M, and it's not like F, but it's like exceeds grade level. It's more like this type of a structure, like exceeds grade level, meeting expectations, needs improvement, right? It's something like that. So you could still use this approach with that, because there are usually still like ranges associated with that stuff. It's just an obfuscation to try and make sure the parents aren't just like demanding A's of people versus A minuses, because it's not really that important at that age. Anyway, so grading scale. Okay, so we have this in our little, you know, database, air quotes. So if we go and look at the console again, element, let's take that grade book, and we're going to do .database base dot grade scale. We already have this data. All right, so this is the nice thing about the way I've got this rigged up currently. It's just going to pull this from that backend. We want to take this data, pass it into like some letter-grade tag, and have it generate the correct score based on the information we put in. So to do that, we're going to make a web component. I think it's a pretty easy web component, to be perfectly honest, but I figured it was worth showing anyway. So we're going to do a letter-grade.js element, and I like to always name the name of my element what the thing is. All right, so we're going to import HTML, CSS, and lit element from lit element / lit element.js. And we're going to do class, and this is going to be called a grade, or letter grade, sorry. Letter grade extends lit element. All right, constructor super, and then we're gonna have this dot value or score, right, equals, we'll start at 0 because that has to be input, and we've got this dot what did I call that over here, grade scale, because we need to know what that is, equals, and this is going to have to be an array we'll hunt through, and then we're also going to need like this dot letter, right? So this is going to be the thing that's returned based on the score. So that is, we'll have the grading scale loaded up, a score will get added into it, and it will just present the letter to us. So letter by default is going to be nothing. Okay, then we're going to have a render function, return HTML. I like to just stub this stuff out. Okay, then we got static get properties. We got to wire those up, return, and we'll do score. Type of score is going to be a number. And we'll do grade scale. And this one I'm starting to get a little weary of doing property value associations that have to do with complex objects like arrays and objects, because we'll get into it. But most of the time when you nest objects together, you're just going to have to forcibly re-render the page or the element anyway. So, and this is going to be a string because it's a letter. Okay. I could also reflect this. Just for fun. Oops, that's so common. Okay, so now, just to start off here, let's make a static get styles. Do these, return, CSS. I pass these around as arrays. You don't have to, but and the host is going to be display block. Okay. All right, just to have it be display block. So then what we're going to put in here, I'm going to have a div. That'll be our wrapper of some kind. And then inside of that div, I'm going to have this dot letter. I think I want to add support for this dot. It's almost like the way it's displayed. Let's just do this dot mini. Or more detail equals false. Or show scale. How about that? That's a more accurate. Kind of like hunt through for what the word is in my head as I'm saying it. Type boolean, reflect true, and attribute. For lit element, you have to do that. You have to change this to. I like making the camel case match what this is. You don't have to do that technically, but I like when it matches. I think it makes a lot more sense from a developer experience perspective of someone using this element. Okay, so now I've got a flag for show scale. Now that's going to be like, do I want to actually show what the grading scale is that matched, right? So it'd be letter, and then I would actually show you the points in that instance. So let's make sure we do a custom elements.define. Oh, this is another, and this is certainly a BTO Pro convention. Drives some people nuts, but I like to do this. So then we do letter hyphen grade, and then what I'll do is I will take this, and we are saying whenever you see this tag, it's this. Export. There we go. All right. So now letter grade can just be used as a class object, or it's going to be defined in the page whenever someone actually implements it. So let's take this letter grade tag. We're going to throw it into gradebook here. Okay, import letter grade. All right. Got letter grade going on, and now we want to put this in the, need to find out where the grades are. Active rubric. That's one of the tab. Okay, so there's student report. So I'm going to put it in two different places here. One is for the instructor to see. So we're going to put that down with overall feedback score here. Okay, so we got total points, and this is where it's currently printing out that feedback is. So we'll just put letter grade there. And letter grade, then we're going to wire data into this. So we need total points. There we go. We're going to do assessment mu total score is the name of that. We'll do score equals. Okay, so that's how we pass that value down into our letter grade tag. So that'll populate score with the numerical value of total score as it's calculated. And then we also need grade scale. Now grade scale is you got to do a little different, right? So it's going to look like this. And the reason this has to have the dot in front of it is it's an object. So it's saying like, hey, set the whole property here, even though I know I passed it in on an attribute. And this is going to come from our database dot grade scale. So we're just going to pass that directly into the letter grade tag. Now, in some other complex systems like HAX and HAXCMS, I would use MobX for this. So we'd have, and I honestly might rewire this in the future via refactor. MobX would then be in charge of our database or data store. And then whenever that value changes, we would just automatically update inside the letter grade. But we're not going to mess with that at the moment, at least, because this is still what I'd consider a prototype. All right, so we feed in the grading scale and the score. And let's do show scale. Oh, also, because this is an array, we're going to have to do attribute grade scale, like that. Okay. So we'll save letter grade. And, no, that didn't reload. Okay, it's going to reload soon. It's going to reload once I save this file is what it'll do. So I'm trying to avoid it doing that. Let's also pass in show scale, right? Now, let's assume that the data wiring is correct for a moment. I know, I don't like to assume things, but now I'm going to take this and we'll replicate this in the student report view. This is theoretically what they would see, and they're going to care about this letter grade a lot more. So I'm going to add a class that is student view. Student view is fine. And then we'll go up to where we have our CSS. I'm going to add a .student view, and we'll do just again, just to do it right. We'll do font size 40 pixels. Sure. So that propagates down into it. So theirs will hopefully be over here, larger display. All right, I'm not going to save that. Let's just work on letter grade. So whenever grading scale is updated, right now that it's in the properties notification area, we can invoke updated changed properties is like how I like to name it. And we will do change out properties for each. Oops, don't know why it did it that way. And it comes across as old value and prop name because it's index and the previous value is the way the lit element fires this. And the reason it does that is because I could always just access this .score whenever this has said, hey, score changed. So that way I can just access it. I don't need to ship that value around the object. So I'm going to do if prop name equals score. Whoops. Wrong tab. Okay. So if it equals score, go away, then I want to try and process an update letter. Now, it's also going to have to change whenever grade scale changes. So the way I like to handle those is I'll do score grade scale dot includes prop name. So this is going to say fire whenever any of these fire. I also then like to do and this prop name. So this is a real simple catch in my mind to say we're not false, okay, or empty in this case, right? So I'll say that this score is null, right? So that would fail on the initial setup of this element. That's also empty. That would hopefully fail. Then I like to put in a debounce, just in case, as we're setting stuff up, this doesn't keep firing endlessly, or not endlessly, but just a whole bunch. All right, so I'll do a debounce equals set timeout. I'll do 0. Up here, I'll do clear timeout on this debounce. It's a simple way to do a debounce. And now I need to this dot process letter grade. Okay. Okay, so process letter grade is going to do this. So whenever the score or the grading scale update, we're going to go through this item. So we're going to do dot filter, because we're trying to find the correct, because this is going to be an array. We're trying to find the object within the array that has score within it, right? So, so we'll do val, and then we need to do if. What would that be then? Okay, if val dot, and we look at our thing, high range. Okay, so if the score, because we know this dot score, is greater than the high range, it means it's higher than that. Now, if it's greater than the very first high range, that's not helpful. So we're trying to do betweens, really. So if score is, well, we could also just do that for, that would be an easier one, right? All right, so if score is greater than or equal to this dot grade scale 0 dot high range. Yep, so that edge case I mentioned early on, account for us having more points than max. And I end up with a decent number of students that have done this in my class because I offer a lot of bonus. And you know, people will go and do the bonus in addition to just crushing it on the assignments. So if that's the case, we don't want to glitch out the whole system. So we're saying, all right, if score is higher than grade scale, right, then let's do another sanity check here. We'll do, need to make sure that there's something there. Okay. Then what we're going to do is return grade scale 0 dot letter, right? So that would return us this letter because we're already higher than the highest range. Now, if score, we're going to go through these. It's not a filter now, is it? It's a for each. So we're going to loop through grading scale. If score is less than the high range, and this dot score is greater than val dot low range, right? And these would probably have to be equal to, right? Yeah, like that. Okay. So if score is less than or equal to the high range, so this would be like right, we're hitting a 90 here, or sorry, a 92. Let's say I have a 92. So if I have a 92, I'm going to fall into the high range because I equal that. And I'm greater than or equal to the low range, right? So 90 in this case. Then I'm going to return this dot grade scale I dot letter. And this also has to come with I, my bad. So in a for each loop, this will give me the value and it'll give me the index within that because I'm in an array here for grade scale. So process letter grade, this is actually going to be this dot letter equals. Okay, so we're going to run through and generate the letter based on this. Okay, so let's think of a case where this wouldn't be possible. And that would be the very end. So if we somehow get to here, we're going to return the lowest thing we possibly can, which would be this dot grade scale dot length -1 letter. If somehow we would get here, it shouldn't be possible, but let's say that the faculty member put this in wrong, or somehow someone has a negative score, it's lower than the low range, it would just give them an F in this case, right? So I have a -5. It's not going to glitch out and just be like, there's no letter. So that will, let's do, instead of I don't like that word process, let's do calculate letter grade. Okay, and then we should document this. Return the letter grade based on score and grade scale existing. Okay, so then we would print out letter. We can also do a nice little conditional here. So love doing conditionals in this way. So we do this dot show scale, right? Because that's our more detailed view. In our element, we've got letter grade and show scale, right? So if show scale is on, which for the instructor view, I'm not going to show the scale. Like, you know that because you're inputting the score, but the student might not. So we'll show the scale for them. Like, hey, you got an A minus. 92 is between, 90 and 93, or whatever the case is there. So I'm going to do conditional logic here, and you can do that inline with ternary in lit element, which is really nice. So I can go and say, all right, we're going to print out the letter, and I'll actually wrap this in a span class equals letter just for fun. I also love with web components that you end up getting this ability to write what otherwise would be like hellish legacy CSS as far as how simple it is. So in a normal application, I would never do something like that, or just, hey, style spans. But in this, I can, which is nice. I'm going to set default font size, as well. I know I set it in the previous one. We'll just do like that. And then on the letter grade, we're going to do a font weight of bold, just again to get some baseline going here. Class wrap, all right. Don't have to do that, but again, I like to do that because we're trying to scope this intentionally for style consistency. So, all right, I've got my wrap on here. The wrapper is going to have a border, so it's 1 pixel, solid black. Now, we will expand that. I'll expand this CSS variables a little bit down the road here. Just trying to get this idea down on the page. So show scale. Okay, so if we do show scale, then that means we're going to have to run this dot print scale, because we need to be able to output it in some usable form. And we're going to use as input the grade scale, so that hopefully if the grading scale updates and show scale is available, it would just reprint this. So this is a conditional logic, as I mentioned. So what we're going to be basically saying is print out the letter grade as the default. If we say to show the scale, then we are going to actually print the grading scale out. So another thing I might want to do here, and this can cause some performance issues, to be perfectly honest, but I might do a request. I don't know if I want to do that in here. Well, we'll see if it messes up. But a request update will force a re-render here. So I could probably skip on this and cheat a little bit more. So I could probably do this .gradescale.filter, and then in the filter I could do return, or I don't even have to type the word return, el dot, I guess it's letter would match that. I guess I could also store the index. Huh. Yeah, let's do it that way instead. Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay, so this dot letter index equals 0. Okay, and then in this case, letter index is I, and in this case, because in this function we're just trying to obtain the letter, which will always show. We may or may not actually show the index of that letter. And I'll show in 1 second why I'm doing it this way. It's just, it'll save me logic above. So let's do, okay. So now we're going to say, instead of having to filter this, now we can do this, oops, this dot letter index, okay, and we also kind of get to cheat on this. We don't even need to do request update now, because when we calculate the letter grade, it's returning the letter grade, which will force an update because that's a string-based value. lit element doesn't need these to be mapped as properties. It's reactive when it is. So you could not include these, have your element, and then just forcibly run renders to get these values printed in, because it's got the object scope and it's just template literal syntax. There's no magic there. That's just, you know, baseline platform code. All right, so I want the range, so we're going to do high range. And then we're going to print out a hyphen, and we'll do, let's do low range. So it's like low range to high range, right? And we've got the scale there, and you've got your letter. And if we're showing the scale, right, so we can do the same conditional logic here. So we'll also print your score, right? So we'll do this dot score. So if we're showing the scale, we're going to print like A 93. And then below it, we're going to say 100 to 90. All right, it's going to be 93 to 100 is what it would say. So I think that is largely the initial scope of this. Let's see what happens. I haven't hit save this entire time. So let's hit save in the gradebook and see what breaks. Oops. Overwrite. Yeah, overwrite what that file is. I don't know why I was saying that. All right. So let's see what complains. Loading, data from our backend. Okay, there we go. So cannot read property, low range of undefined. All right. So we need to account for null case. I kind of had a feeling that might happen. So that's on line 29. Low range is not actually set. So it's a null case, as I said. So low range, it's going to have to be if show scale and low range, or letter index. And we can do that on here too. All right, so yeah, it's a null case. Now I could also just say this dot, you know, oops, I could do this dot letter index is 0, which would also hopefully save on that. But now we'll get refreshes whenever we update that element because it's hooked into the gradebook. Oh, all right, more errors. Yay! Cannot read property letter of undefined. Oh, so it actually got into, nice, it got into our logic here, right? Because it went through and went, I don't know what the heck's a grading scale. So again, these are some null case type of issues. So calculate letter grade, right? We need to have, in this case, all right, so let's, I mentioned we had that like kind of little sanity check on there, but we're also going to need to not process this until if this dot grade scale dot length is greater than 0. We have to have grade scale data, otherwise we can't calculate a letter. It's just not possible. Let's see if that helps at all. I run into a lot more issues with null case, you know, like initial starting point sort of stuff than any other consideration here. All right, so it at least didn't brick. That's nice. So now let's see why it's not rendering. So we've got total points. Where's the field? There's letter grade. Okay, so it's still saying score is 0. Okay. Interesting. Score, well, let's see what happens when we make score like 7 or 7, yeah. All right, so it still didn't even react to that, so that's not good. Right, so we can dig into our element and see letter, nothing in there. Huh. Letter grade is supposed to be informed by the grade scale having some setting. Let's make sure the grade scale is being updated. So we'll do console.log, this prop name. That'll help us know if that's getting in there. Now on gradebook, it's not writing the score in there, which is very, very surprised actually to see that. Huh. Now I don't I don't even think I use assessment view as a value anywhere. I just reset it. And I'm not currently using anything else from it. Update total score. So that updates the total score. So this would be, you know, one of your data binding, repaint the value sort of things. So I'm using this query selector to set total points forcibly here. Again, I have certainly have some logic to untangle at a later point in time, but let's just fire request update after score is set here and see if that helps as well. It's possible we're just out of sync because there is a lot of data going on this page. All right, so letter grade is getting data passed into it. Let's see if it updates now. Whoops. Move this over here. It is not reflecting our score value in there. And grade scale is also not being set in there. That's unfortunate. So it's supposed to set that whenever that value updates, and it has a grade scale. I am well aware of that. Okay, so grade scale. Let's make sure that that actually is the case. Go through and debug land, live code invokes issues, database. Right, and then from database we've got grade scale, which is an array. I wonder, well, let's force this to have the values. I'm not entirely sure why the data is not getting there at the moment, which is unfortunate. But so let's say its score is 10, and then let's store that value, and then we'll do temp2 dot grade scale equals temp1 dot database dot grade scale. Hey, there we go. All right, we're at least getting somewhere. So now we've got the grade scale loaded in there. I'm not entirely sure why that isn't getting passed in at the moment, but ignoring that fact. Now let's do temp2 dot score equals 20. Let's do 19, 18. Oh, I don't have it as a percentage. So I need to know what my total is. All right. So I need to go to my letter grade. I need to say score. And we have to have total because otherwise there's nothing to calculate. It's a percentage here. As far as being between those values, it has to be percentage, unfortunately, for these purposes. So, all right, so we got total there. That I don't need, because I know it's working once the data actually gets in there. So let's set grading scale, calculate letter grade is going to be high range, and it's not score, it's math.round. I don't even think you need to do that actually. It's let percent equal this dot score divided by this dot total times 100. Now I can use percent instead of score. Okay, but now I'm also going to need total. Otherwise, we got to divide by 0, and that is going to be awful. Total. Okay, so we have to have a total and a score and a grade scale before we can move forward. So instead of this, no, that'll still catch the initials. Okay, so we got total, then we have to go up here and do this dot score total equals null. Okay, save that one. Then in our letter grade, we have to get this value, total equals. Okay, so that should bind our total in there. Notice I said should because I'm still not sure why my score and grading scale are not pulling this data in, unless I'm missing something that's hitting me in the face. It says grade scale. It's very odd. It's supposed to have this value, unless it's not aware of it. All right, so let's see if we can't force that to reevaluate with this info. So I'll go in here, console. We've got letter grade. Oh, well, total comes across because obviously. I honestly don't know why that's not doing the data binding there, other than that it's a complex object. So I guess I already know why that is. Let's just do total score and make a total score value. I was messing with a concept with that other thing, and it's just clearly not working. I'm having to do way too much manual setting of this total score thing to get anything that matters. So update total score. There's total score. All right, now constructor. Yeah, that's assessment view is I was trying to do something else. Properties. Also the database aspect. I mentioned complex nested arrays and objects. It's more or less worthless to try and monitor for property changes. It just ain't happening. All right, so now we've got a total score that hopefully will file its way through there. Let's see. Let's previous element setup. Come on. Render. Thank you. Okay. All right. Feedback. Open letter grade. All right. So there's score and total, and 10, but it's still not updating that value, which is just bizarre to me. This is very weird. Huh. I've got score there. It's like it's then ignoring the fact that total score changes, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's set right there. There's nothing. Rubric points change. So whenever that value changes, there's nothing too sophisticated there, to be perfectly honest. The only reason that you see the other value update, or I guess I should do that one. I see. That's the problem. I was updating this value. Got it. Okay. I think I have to have... Okay, so there's a state management issue right there, obviously, because I'm setting total score only when forcing an IC. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So the issue is I have to come up with a locking system, basically. When you update these values, it has to update this because it's the total. But you could technically override it and be like, oh, you know what? You did this other thing. I'll just add 2 points arbitrarily. So, all right, so that wasn't actually the issue. The issue with our letter grade is we still don't have it doing the this.database.grade scale is still not getting updated in there. And if I take that off, it's like, hey, I need to know what that is, which I agree. So, I wonder if when that updates, how we could force that to update. So grade scale is clearly not associating correctly. It's bizarre, but so whenever, I guess what I could do, that's a weird way of achieving that, but Okay, so when grade scale update, because grading scale is loaded in initially, and then we're done with it. I don't have to think about it anymore. So I don't, in scenarios like that, I don't like doing data binding into the page like needlessly, and I don't think it actually causes any issue performance-wise. I just don't like the idea of constantly monitoring a value when it will never change. So what I could do is this runs a special function whenever these are all done, right? Load CSV data, and after we're done loading CSV data, we request update, right? So then I know all the sheets are loaded. Actually, it updates each step of the way. Right at the end here, we should end up with this.database.gradescale. Okay, so let's just do a sanity check. Ensure the letter grade tags know about the database refresh. Okay, because this only happens on the initial. So we make sure that that's greater than nothing. So we have something. And then we're going to do this .shadowroot.query selector. Love this call. Letter grade. Query selector all. Query selector all. Okay. And then we'll do let LG equal that. And we'll do for just I in array, you have to typecast array dot from LG. Oops. And what that does, it's because a query selector all mouthful there statement is going to return a node list, and a node list is like a specialized array. It doesn't allow you to have iteration through it. You can just call like for or for each. So I got to typecast it as an official array instead of a node list. So I'm going to do LG. Now I have access to all the letter grades. I know it's weird in the way I'm doing this, but all the letter grade items. So then I'm going to do LG dot grade scale equals. Let's see if that picks it up and works. And in here, I'm going to do this console log LG just to know that this actually ran. It should. So all the other data is loading. Nope. Well, that's weird. All the other data loaded. What am I missing here? Oh. That's what I'm missing. Among other things. I mean, there's that. This also should be returning this value. Let's check on that too. Come on, load my little database. Hey, there we go. All right, so we don't have any node list selected, but it does pull in that, and it gets here, so that's good. Isn't that the name of the tag? Timing issue. So I'm conditionally painting these parts of the screen, meaning there is no letter grade until we are actually done loaded. Okay. I was wondering if that's what was going on. So loading being false needs to happen prior to that. And then this will be mostly just to bump back a micro task so that hopefully that's in the page. Let's see if that does it. So now we're waiting for loading to have been toggled. And I could probably solve that in a better way for sure, but there we go. Now I found the two items in our node list. Hey, we've got an F right now. Yay. Oh, amazing. Of course it doesn't get the other. Okay, so the range is wrong there. That's actually really good to know. So now we've got our letter grade updating. Let's see if the other one makes sure the other one did. Oh, good, and it's giving the justification as to why. So we go to 10. Amazing. Now it was supposed to still have the thing in place. But all right, so let's update that. And now let's see what's wrong with our range logic. So clearly, we just skip straight to amazing. Letter index 0. And let's take that away. Or actually, let's do null. Yeah, this is a null case issue because it's the very first item in the array. I hate this part of JavaScript. So this dot letter index equals null. That way, if it's nothing, an actual nothing value, it won't do it. Otherwise, there we go. So, got grade scale. We've got index set to. Okay, so let's see what the issue we're running into here is. So, percentage has to be less than or equal to the high value here. I might have these backwards, actually. I'm going to take a wild guess that's what it actually is. So let's do console.log I, console.log val, and then we will console log each of these little evaluations just to be safe. But I think that's what it is, right? So we'll see if that's true or false. Console.log, percentage low range, like that. Okay. So let's see if I actually just had those backwards, which I think might be the thing there. But we'll see. Okay. So, hey, we got a whole bunch of stuff. False, 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 false. Now, no, I just had those backwards, didn't I? All right, let's do 10 and 10. Let's see if we at least got our null case better. Yeah, so now we've got our null case of that, right? You go amazing because you got a 20. No, I'm gonna have to put percentages there or whatever, but that's fine. So, all right, so I still gotta get these in between cases because it's just gonna go straight to a false. Okay. So that wasn't all right. I had those right before. And then it's high range and low range. I guess we should log what percent is because I don't know what percent is. Huh. All right, let's see what that is. Almost got our logic working there. All right. We are looking for one where it's true and true. Consarn it. All right, hey, it's true and true at the moment because it failed miserably. 10 is still failing. Okay, so we're looking for like a 17. Right, because that should be, we should know, it's not what the low range is. Huh. What's our last value here? Or we've got I, and then val, which is the range information, right? Okay, and then we've got number 5. Where's 5 coming from? That's not 5%. What? Also, how is that changing? What? Come on. How the hell is that changing? I'm not losing it, right? I'm not. Oh, wait, that was the high-low. Yeah, I am losing it a little bit. Okay. All right, we're all the way at the bottom. All right, we've got an 85. So an 85 should, all right, it found it. It was a B, yeah. True and true, but then it just kept going. Why is that? What? That should just return, shouldn't it? maybe I am. I mean, okay, so it's evaluating that correctly. Huh. Why would that be the case? All right, so it's in the right range. I actually had it written correctly, which is surprising. It's returning it to the for each. So is it like, no, I don't want to return that. Maybe I don't want to use a for each. Maybe I don't want a for I in this dot grade scale. Yeah, I think that might be what it is. And then I'm going to do let val equal, oops. Yeah, I. I, there we go. Val is going to equal this dot grade scale I. Okay. All right, so go through these. Find the percent when it's between these ranges. Let's see if that solves it. We were just, our return logic was a little off. I hope so. That'll be great. All right. Bump that up to 100. Hey, there we go. D, C, B minus, B, A minus. Amazing. All right. So let's leave that at like an A minus. All right. And it's saying, hey, that is a, now it has to say percentage. So high range, low range is going to have to be actually putting the little percent sign there. Okay. And the little percent sign there. So then that would tell us that it was a high and low range of 90 to 92%. And we'll also have to say it's 18 out of total. Otherwise, it doesn't, you know, make any sense necessarily. Or I could do the percentage. But I probably want to, yeah. Again, I'm going to style this later. For those purposes, I'm very aware it does not look wonderful. So this is going to be out of this dot total. I'm just trying to make this look visually acceptable. I don't want size 40 on this little container of thing. Yeah, so we'll do a span in here, span just on that part, and then we'll do a span just on the percentages, because we also don't want those to be absurd looking. Span. All right, and then we'll say class equals score, and this is also going to be, we'll do class equals percent, or range. We'll do range on that one, yeah. Okay, so then we'll do dot range, and we'll do dot score, again, just so that we can wrap up the video with something that doesn't look hellish. Font weight, normal, font size, 16. And the way, obviously, the way I do these is I would do the grade, or no, letter, grade, hyphen grade, range, font size. So I like to do something that implies the name of the element, and this is a CSS variable if you're not familiar with it, name of the element, then something internal to the element to identify this, like a portion of it, and then like font size or whatever the thing that I'm directly influencing is, right? And then I would do those for things like, you know, font weight, and we do normal, and then I do it here, and we change this from range to letter, and this would be bold for our default, and then we do font size on that one. We'll take off that 40, we'll put size there, size, and we'll make this like 36. So it's a little less absurd. We'll put some default padding on our wrap, right? Just some tiny bow on it sort of stuff, but again, we would do like a bar, and then this would be letter, grade, wrap, padding, 4 pixels, right? And I'll probably add CSS shadow parts and stuff like that as I clean this up further after we shut off the camera, but that should at least be a little more acceptable than what it is. So now we see the next state of this, we're loading our data from happy-go-lucky gradebook area. Go zoom up through, and there's my A-. And then in the student report, we've now got a why I have an A-, and the percentages because it falls within range. So I need to actually mock that up, obviously, and style these things. But if you are interested in any of these other things, right, I'm going to submit this now as part of, I made that, so it's still work in progress, but the gradebook part is commit M, right? So we will close that out as part of this video. Yay! We've got a file. I don't know what VS Code launches. I'll have to get rid of that. So now this should close out. No, I should have said it closed or fixes. There. All right. So thus concludes said video. If you're interested in learning more about our projects, make sure you hit up HAXTheWeb.org. Hopefully we'll have a redesigned site in the near future. And also, if you go to bit.ly/HAXSLACK, like that, Hack Slack, then you can get into our Slack channel, ask us questions, join the movement seeking to hack and reclaim the web. So, catch you later, YouTubes.